Holy cow, that paint took forever. But it turned out great. Very happy with it. Wish it would have gone quicker, but that's how it goes sometimes. You just kind of take what you can get. But now we can start assembling the case. And I'm a little worried about that, trying to remember how everything came apart. But we can go in, get the case installed in this exterior, get the door handle put back on, figure out our controls for our front panel again. Then we can slap in some hardware, start putting this thing together, because in about a week and a half, we've got to be at QuakeCon. So let's go ahead. We're going to start on the door, I think. That's going to be the easiest for me to figure out. And I've got one sitting right over there if I have any troubles. So we'll get this thing untaped, get it slapped together, and then we'll just kind of work through all these pieces. So that's the door put back together. I did have to grab the other one to kind of cheat off of it, and most of the case put back together as well. I did tape up the edges when I was sliding that interior in. I was really worried about chipping some paint, and I really don't want to repaint anything, so I wanted to take all the precautions I could. And that worked out pretty well. I don't think it hurt any paint anywhere. Next up, we're going to rivet this thing back together. Same problem. It's a good spot where you can damage some paint, so I'll make up some tape to kind of put over my holes, so if the rivet gun does skip across, it doesn't hit the paint first thing. Maybe the tape will save it. But we'll get this thing put together, then we can kind of get the front panel together and then start getting other pieces on here. At some point, we'll be able to actually put hardware in this, which will be nice. So let's start heading in that direction. Okay, so it's going together really well, and it's looking really cool so far. Now we're going to throw some hardware in it. I'm going to tie these up so they're not flopping around, scratching everything, but we'll get the hardware in, kind of figure out our cable lines, how we're going to run everything, and then we'll start piecing it all together, getting the final product done. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the hardware's in. I just pulled the GPU out. It mounts nice. And I'm figuring out my cable routing. So I'm going to run around the motherboard tray and bring my 24 pin up here. Keep going around and get my 8 pin up here for the CPU. There's this nice little hook that I can use to bring it out and kind of loop around through. And I know some people are going to say cable ties, and really it's cable management. I would use cable combs, but that kind of defeats the purpose of having a stock interior look going. I'm not looking for super fancy on the inside. I'm not looking for, you know, that structure that a set of cable combs would add. I want something that looks like you bought this, you got it from Dell, but the exterior is just nuts. This is the stock sleeper part is on the inside. The fancy part's on the outside. So we're going to use zip ties like they would when they're putting things together, and it's going to manage the wires. I am sleeving my cables. I'm going to do a color set to match the stripes on the front of the door of the case. But so they're going to be nice and everything. But I also want to have that, hey, this is come off of an assembly line look to it. So cable ties it is. We'll get our bases for those set, and then figure out our lengths of cable, and then I think we'll start making some cables. I do need to go through. I've got a USB 3 header that I can run through. There's an audio header, and then the stuff for the power switch and everything. I'm going to have to figure out how the audio is going to plug in and how the switch and all that panel, because there were a bunch of lights and I don't have lights there anymore. So I'm going to have to go through and kind of figure out what goes to what I can get rid of and what I need to keep. Because basically there is still an LED in there, but basically all I need is power and reset. I would like the audio to work, but it doesn't have to, and it may not. I don't know. Maybe something where I just keep the wire and then figure it out later. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And I do have the other case and motherboard to go off of and see if I can't suss out what everything is supposed to be. So that's going to help with that deal. But yeah, let's get our wires kind of lengths figured out and see if I can keep this outside the case without screwing anything up. And then once we get our wire lengths figured out, we can cut all our cables, get them sleeved, get them made, and start putting things in. So that's the plan. So I'm just figuring out how my wires are going to go and my cables. So I've got the links for all my cables, so I can go ahead and make those, get them sleeved. The audio just reaches if you take it under the motherboard, but it's got the wrong connector, so I'll have to re-terminal and put a new connector on it to make it work. And honestly, that's going to push it even further from not working as far as distance goes. And I really don't use front panel audio, so I'm not sure I'm going to do anything. I may slip it underneath the motherboard, tape it off to keep it from getting into any trouble, but just leave it there for just in case if I ever want to do something with it. But I may not ever hook it up. So I think that's what we're going to do with the audio. The USB cable works fine. We do need to go through and find out the pinout on our start button and all that jazz. But we can go ahead and make our cables up, get the motherboard pulled, get the cooler on it, get our cables in here. I do, at some point in time, need to figure out my fans. So that's the thing that I'm going to have to do. That's a lot of splicing and cutting wires together. But, you know, beyond that, we're in pretty good shape. So let's go ahead and start doing our cables. And those are our cables done. Now we need to start on our fans. This is going to use 5 baby 80mm fans because I think it's hilarious. But I don't have 5 places to plug in fans. So actually I might. But I'm not going to because they're on one side of the case. The plugs are on the other. They don't need to be any special, you know, each have their own speed, control, everything. So I am going to tie all these together so I have one wire to worry about on the motherboard for my fans. So that's going to require somehow soldering all those together. And that's what we're going to do next. This is going to look weird, but I'm going to mount these to the bracket backwards. That's why I zip tied my cables where I want them to go. But if I put these on the fan bracket, they will hold them where I want them to be while I'm doing all the work. I just have to make sure that I have my wire set up that when I go and flip these around, it's coming out the right end. So yeah, the wire, if we flip this around, we'll go that way. But this will hold everything in place so that I can yank and tug on wires and not have fans going just everywhere. So. Okay, so our fans are wired up. Now we're going to set them in the case, see if we need to trim up our wire. If not, we'll just go ahead and sleeve it. If we do need to trim it, we'll just cut it to length. So let's see if we can slide this in here without breaking anything. Okay, I think right in there, that gets us through one cable tie, gives us plenty of room to work with. So somewhere in there, cut it down to that spot. We'll throw a sleeve on that, repin the ends. That'll be done and ready to go in. Then I think we're going to pull this front cover off, get into the front panel and see if we can figure out what our power switches are, what color of wire that we need to pull out of our connector, because I can't find anything online about what it needs to be, which ones. So we're going to have to do some hunting. So I have perused the internet to try to find the pinout for this and didn't find one. Also saw things about how this little board would talk with the motherboard that the Dell came with, as far as like turning things on and being able to switch on power. So I'm not even sure there's 2 pins in here that actually run directly to the switch. So rather than trying to figure that out and maybe not get anywhere, I'm just going to abandon this. I wasn't going to use USBs. Crap. I wasn't going to use the USBs anyway. I mean, it'd be nice, but I'm not going to go through and try to figure out what goes where when none of this may actually work with what I've got. So I'm just going to tie my power to the switch itself. I've got the pins on the back, so I can tie the LED in and the switch in, run those wires to my board. Everything should work, and I won't have to worry about what mess Dell has in this circuit board. So that's what we're going to do. We'll put these on, get the distances, get the length figured out, sleeve them, put some terminals on them, and we should be good to go. Okay, so we've got our terminals done for our power switch and power LED. I'm not going to worry about a reset. I probably should, but hey, there's a big switch on the back that turns everything off, so that'll work too. So now we're ready for a cooler, and we'll pull the board out to do that. While that's out, we'll lay some wires in here that I won't be able to get to later. And man, I think we're getting close to just putting it all together. So let's go ahead and yank that board. Okay, there we go. Everything is in the case. We're all plugged in. I think we're ready to put the cord on it and see if this thing boots up. So that's what we're gonna do. Fingers crossed. That's good. So many lights that I don't need. Will she boot? Huh. I think I got that plugged in right. Maybe we should check. Well, worst case scenario. Okay, that's power switch. I don't think that connected it up. That is our LED. So that works. Well, she's booting, so no LEDs holding us up, which it shouldn't. This is a system out of a case that ran. It was my jute case, or the burlap case. It ran fine. Nothing in this has changed other than the fans. These things are putting out some air, and the cooler's running, so this should be perfectly fine, just needing some updates. We're going to figure out the switch. That's a problem. But, you know, it's kind of how this goes. I kind of figured I'd be doing a little bit of troubleshooting on this, so that's what we'll do. Okay, so that is what the Dell finished up. Everything worked. It's updated. I did have to pull off a couple of pieces of my door on the inside. This covers the handle, and it's kind of a, I think this is just a bracket that's supposed to hold expansion cards tight, and sitting there like that, and it hit the heat pipes on my cooler. So probably should have checked that first, but with those taken off, everything fits perfect. The problem with the switch was having to flip the connector over. I've never run into one. I mean, I'm used to momentary switches, so it's like it doesn't matter which direction anything goes. As long as you're connecting them, it works. This one, not so much. It has to be on a certain way for it to work, but it works. The light works. If it's dark enough, you can actually see the light come on. So perfect. This thing has turned out exactly how I wanted it, and it possibly even a little bit better. So very happy. We'll be taking some pictures of this because, you know, have to, but also getting this thing, the updates finished, some games loaded on it, and getting this thing ready for QuakeCon, which is leaving on Wednesday. It is now Monday, so I actually repped it up early for me. Usually it's the night before, but she's all said and done and ready to go. There's one more thing we've got to do. I think it's only fitting that this has a Dell badge on it. There's still some sticky on that. I wonder if it will stay. Look at that. Dude, we got a Dell. So thanks you all for following along with this and checking it out and listening to me ramble about crap, but she's finished. She's ready to go. That'll be it for this video. So take care of yourselves and get out there and build something cool like this.